In English, we have only 26 characters, of course, but it's been a slow process getting to this point, and we might not be finished yet. Our alphabet apparently is a constantly evolving thing, and some letters may be on the verge of dying out. Well, with me to explain, Michale Rosen, former British Children's Laureate and author of a new book called Alphabetical, which explores the history of the alphabet. Hasn't it always been 26 letters and will forevermore remain so?
Well, that's the way we were taught, wasn't it? You had a sense that it was a sort of permanent structure, and in this country at any rate, we call it the Roman alphabet. But of course the Romans, there were some letters they didn't have. I mean, just think the most famous Roman of them all, Julius Caesar. How was it written? I-V-L, I-V-S. Well, so here and in other countries we invented the J, we invented the U, and we invented the W. In some other countries, people watching will know, they've invented some other letters. Scandinavians have some others, but this book is mostly about the alphabet that me and you use to write, and of course we don't have many of the accents, the diacritics so-called. We don't have an umlaut, we don't have accent aigu, accent grave, the French have, and so on. So the English alphabet is an English alphabet in a way.
But I was thinking about this before we did the interview, and I was thinking, but we use quite assiduously every letter of our alphabet, don't we?
We do use them, but some of them we don't actually necessarily need to. I mean, just think of the letter X, for example. The X is wonderful because you can have X factors and you can use...
We have taxes, wonderful.
Yes, exactly, but you just think we've actually got lots of other letters that can do the job. So when we say tax, it could be a K and an S. And when we say exile, it could be two G's and a Z, exile. Well, that's what happens with the alphabet. You do have some redundancy. And then also you have letters that really, you know, anyone here who's tried to learn English will tear their hair out. Letters like GH in a word like fight, well, they're hanging about for archaeological reasons. They're hanging about because once that was pronounced something like ficht, and the French scribes, because I always have to remember the Normans came in 1066 and they didn't particularly like the way people wrote, and so they said, I tell you what, that sound, very famous in Europe, not very often crops up in Britain, that should be spelt with a G and an H, and that's why we have those GHs that we never, but we don't say them anymore. Fight, there's no sound in it at all. So it's always evolving.
So when was the last time it wasn't 26 letters?
Well, I suppose you could say that if you take Samuel Johnson and his wonderful dictionary in the middle of the 18th century, he wasn't really very happy there was a J. He thought I and J were really more or less the same thing and that they could do the same job. So if you take a king of England, James I of England, when you look at the way his name was written down, more often than not, it was written I-A-M-E-S, and he wrote I-R, that's James Rex, or it would have been in Latin. So at that point, so that's in the 17th century, they were still writing I's for J's. You look at Shakespeare, I's for J's, and U's and V's being used interchangeably. A word like knave, that's to say, you know, the wicked man, knave, more often than not, or love, written L-O-U-E. So U and V were used interchangeably. It's taken a long time to get these things bedded in.
I can see that in French, I mean, I was thinking about in French, why do they have the H? It's not pronounced.
It isn't. I can't necessarily answer too many questions on it, but of course we inherit some French words like honour, and we don't pronounce the H. On the other hand, we walk around saying habit, but we actually took it from French, and in a way we should say habit or hospital, but in actual fact it came into the language as hôpital or hospital, and that's how it came into the... So there's some very strange anomalies, particularly around the letter H, and interestingly enough, we always say either it's pronounced huh, or we don't pronounce it, but you say for me the word H-U-G-E. You say that to me.
Huge.
Now, you've used the sound at the beginning of that differently from now say happy to me.
Happy?
Yes, you see you went happy, but huge. You did a thing that a lot of continental people watching from Europe, you did.
And also H has got a certain class connotation about, about whether you drop your H's or not.
Exactly. That's partly because the London accent, which quite often is thought a rather proletarian accent, people will say happy. I'm very happy. And, you know, if you want to say his head for his hat, you could say his head for his hat, right? And that's why you get what's called the Cockney alphabet, Z for his hat. Z for his hat, Z for his hat, see? So yes, the Cockney accent, and then because of that, people have said, oh, well, it's not proper, and you've got to teach people how to say huh.
I mean, I suppose languages do evolve rather than go through revolutions, but one that did go through a revolution was the Hebrew alphabet, where they don't use vowel sounds.
Exactly.
So you just have consonants, and there are no vowels, and you recognise that if it, I don't know, you see SMT, the word is summit, or, you know,
Yes.
or you see it in the context of the words, and therefore you understand what you need to use, which would be interesting. Maybe we'll get rid of all our A-E-I-O-U.
Yeah, well, indeed. And if you try, in fact, if you look at your script and strike out all the vowels, do you think you would be able to do it? It'd be quite fun, wouldn't it? You could ask the people giving you your auto cue to take out all the vowels and see whether you could read it. Actually, you know, when I was a kid, there used to be an advertisement for what was called speed writing. And the advertisement used to say, "Get a good job and more pay," which was, got to get a good job and more pay.
And do you know what? When I went to journalism college, that's exactly the sort of shorthand we learned. It's based on there are no vowel sounds, you just use the consonants, and that's the type of shorthand.
When you think how much time we spend learning about vowels and vowel sounds, and a lot of them, in fact, we just say with an which has got a special name, a schwa. So there you go. So it's even got, because so many of them...
Did you have fun doing this?
Oh, of course. Wonderful fun. Wonderful fun.